now we have something that might be interesting to you, and that happens to be Tim Hensey came today from the Safe Siesta Key, the incorporation group that's been working just tirelessly, and I believe you may have some great information for us. Tim, come on up.
I'm pleased to report that we are committed to submit a feasibility study for the next cycle, the 2022-2023, and for incorporation, and we have every reason to believe we're going to be successful this time. Now, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So what are we doing different? I think that's my key message tonight. First of all, our local delegation is changing. It's going from 6 members to 4 members, and that's because of the redistricting that you've probably read about over and over in the newspapers. Additionally, we're in an election cycle. There's an election in November of 22, and nobody's filed yet against the 4 incumbent sitting 3 representatives and 1 senator that they expect people to file. But we have every reason to believe that the current legislatures probably, as incumbents, will be reelected. If they're not, we'll adjust. So last time we were 3-3 vote, and the tie didn't get us there. So with 4 members of the local delegation, we need a 3-1 vote. A 2-2 won't get us there. And so some of the things that we're doing. First of all, we've met with half of those legislators so far. We met with Fiona McFarland last night in a board meeting. We met with Senator Joe Reuters the week before. We're meeting with Representative Mike Grant next week, and then we'll be meeting with James Buchanan as well when we can schedule that. We've got a very favorable response so far that leads us to believe that we would at least probably have a 3-1 vote, but that's not for sure. Reuters and McFarland have said they're solidly in our camp. When we meet with Grant next week, he's preliminarily told us that he's, open-minded and favorable, but we'll see if we can solidify that. What are some other things we're doing? Well, first of all, we heard some objections at the local delegation meeting, and we're addressing those objections with the local legislators. One of them was the millage. A lot of people felt like our quarter mill was just too low and that we were being unrealistic. We personally, the board, did not feel that. We thought we had a very solid feasibility study. We had all our expenses accounted for. We had our revenues projected. And we had a pretty hefty contingency in there. But we still heard a lot of pushback. So we're considering addressing that by raising the millage just a little bit, not a lot. So we can, have a better assurance of being approved. Some of the other things we're doing, last time we hired a lobbyist that was at the recommendation of Lynn Tipton, who's the executive director of the Florida League of Cities. It is a fact that the lobbyist that we hired was the only lobbyist in Tallahassee that is currently active that's ever been through an incorporation, and he was highly recommended, so we took that recommendation, and I think he did a nice job, but here's where politics come into play, and I won't say this had everything to do with it, but he's a lifelong Democrat, and if you look at what's going on in Tallahassee right now, we have a heavily weighted Republican House, Republican Senate, and Republican governor. So you've got to question how effective could a Democratic lobbyist be in that environment. So we engaged we interviewed 3 firms. They are without a doubt the 3 most, respected and visible lobbying firms in Tallahassee. We interviewed the Ramba Group, we interviewed the Ballard Group, and the Vogel Group, and all 3 of them are outstanding. Initially, because of a very favorable financial proposal, and also I'll just say a little bit of bias here. I've worked with David Ramba for over 20 years in a past life. We're initially going forward with David Ramba to help us, get to where we need to get. We may consider, once we get past the local delegation, hiring a second lobbyist firm to work with David in concert, if that makes any sense, because the simple fact of the matter is, when you get to Tallahassee, you're dealing with all these senators and all these representatives. Everybody's got their relationships, and they're not all the same. So we think we're doing the right thing. A couple other things we're doing. We're going to hire a professional public relations firm. We're going to do a better job of crafting our message of why, and make it very professionally done. A couple of things that was recommended to us, and this was recommended by Senator Gruters, is that we may consider also getting a professional polling firm to do a polling that we can put in front of the legislators and say, you know, this data suggests that, I'm just making something up, 85% of the people on the Key want to be incorporated. So it would be persuasive information. Another thing that Senator Gruters told us, and this is a big change, is that, as you're probably aware, the Speaker of the House turns over every year. It's a different person. This past year, the Speaker of the House was Chris Sprouse. And Chris, being extremely conservative Republican, was just ironclad, no new taxes, no new government, no matter what. And so he's probably the most powerful figure in Tallahassee, and was in all likelihood why we had a 3-3 vote and why we didn't go forward. Well, next year, the Speaker of the House is a gentleman that resides out of St. Augustine by the name of Paul Renner. Paul's been in the House for quite a while, and we've had some preliminary discussions with Paul that he said, quote, he said, "I'll have an open mind about incorporation for Siesta Key if there are good reasons to do it, beyond just having another layer of government." So this gets back to us crafting our message and what the message is. You know, some of the bullet points that we've already talked about that I'll share with you, and one that I think is one of the most very persuasive. We are the largest barrier island in the state of Florida that's unincorporated. I mean, just look around us at Longboat Key, Anna Maria, Holmes Beach, City of Venice. And statistically, there's 432 cities, towns, and villages in the state of Florida. So why are they entitled to be their own city and we're not? Well, some people will tell you it's because they were formed as a city long ago and they might not get a good chance now as well. But we think that if we choose to govern ourselves by a majority vote here on Siesta Key, that should be our decision, not somebody else's decision. It's essentially our position. So those are some of the reasons that we feel very, very positive that this next time around we're going to be successful. And, you know, what successful looks like from a path, if the local delegation approves it, and they would likely have the local delegation meeting in December of 22, then it would have to go to both the House of Representatives and the Senate for approval during the 23 session, which is classically late January through mid-March. It's usually about a 60-day session. And then if that is approved by the House and the Senate, then we would actually have a election or a vote here on Siesta Key where each and every one of you, assuming you're registered voters and you're willing to go vote, you know, should Siesta Key incorporate or not. And that's how we would get there. And then if that were passed by a 50% plus one margin, then we would have another election, and it could be a special election or it could be at the regular cycle of the first Tuesday in November each year, where we would elect, you know, a likelihood of 5 town commissioners. Now, there's been some talk about expanding that to 7, but right now our charter says 5 commissioners. And once those 5 commissioners would be elected and put in place, then there's about a 6-month transition period between the new incorporated town or city and county. It doesn't happen just right overnight. So Once again, we haven't lost our passion. We've had some turnover in board members. We've got some new board members. We've got a plan. The plan isn't going to be without cost. We think we need about another $75,000 to get through this, to pay our lobbyists, pay our PR firm, pay our polling, and to do what we need to do, but we're comfortable we can get there. We also are holding some neighborhood meetings, and you're likely to be invited to those. We have a group of almost 30 ambassadors, and our ambassadors are neighborhood specific. We try not to double up. And we're trying to get into every neighborhood in Siesta Key, whether it's where I live on Island Circle, or Siesta Isles, or Mangrove Point, or Cedar Grove, or wherever. Plus, we've got 7,000 condominium doors. I'm not sure what the total count of condos is. Do you know, Bob?
No, I don't.
It's in the hundreds. So we've already started some of those neighborhood meetings where basically I'm giving the same information I just gave you all in the last 7 or 8 minutes, and then open it up to question and answers. So with that, I think that's pretty much a summary. I'd be happy to entertain questions from anybody. Yes, sir.
Are the petitions that we signed earlier still valid?
Yes, they are, and we're asking for more petitions, and we'll likely use those in our polling data. And we've done a major mailing to get more petitions, but the ones you signed are still valid. Yes, sir.
My question follows on that. We just moved here a year ago today, really full time, and we're still getting away from the ambassadors of each neighborhood. They have a list of people who sign petitions, so like the process of production that we have, we need to not.
We do. It's a little bit arduous. I know on our neighborhood of Island Circle, we've got 160 homes, and my wife and I walked the entire neighborhood one Saturday, and we were doing that. Okay, they've signed one. Okay, yeah. And we did find some discrepancies, I'll be honest with you. But the good news is we knocked on a lot of doors, we talked to a lot of people, and we got a very warm reception from literally everybody we spoke to.
Is there any thought of putting names of those who have submitted petitions on the website?
Nobody suggested that yet, but since you just did, we'll entertain that at our next board meeting. Thank you very much for the suggestion.
I can look at the website. First, introduce myself.
Just from firsthand experience, the biggest challenge that we're fighting is that so many of our residents are part-time residents and they're just not here. And I think you're going to find that in darn near every neighborhood and every condo in Siesta, particularly this time of year. Our feasibility study is due September 1st, so it's due before the wave of part-time residents would come back. Yes, sir.
Similar, thank you for your efforts, first of all. I think a lot of us were at a meeting downtown where they got previously voted. I think you addressed a lot of the issues. The polling seems to be a real big one. The other one, I wondered, the Bay Island question, and the fact that that's part of Sarasota. I think we figured out any strategies that handle that, and the fact that two incorporated entities will be close to each other.
So that's a great question. The Florida statute that governs that actually says that incorporated cities or towns can't be within a certain distance of each other. I want to say it's 2 miles, but don't hold me to that. It's a distance. And obviously, we would be abutting them. And Representative Will Robinson hung his hat on that. But we were told by staff when we went up to Tallahassee that that has been waived in the past and is an easy, waivable irregularity. And so we have addressed that with our current local delegation, and I don't think anybody in the local delegation is going to hang their hat on that this time. But you never know. Yes, ma'am.
So if we want to see if we sign the petition or do something like that, we go to Siesta Key Incorporation. Is there a website? How do
Yes.
we do that?
Yes, our website is Save Siesta Key. If you Google that, it'll come right up. But again, currently, I don't believe we have a listing by name of everybody that signed petitions. All we have is a count.
So if we want to make sure we sign the petition and we're going up north soon, what would we do?
Sign it again.
No harm in signing another one.
Do you have them with you today?
I do not, I'm sorry. But good point, Joyce.
Are there Davidson's?
Yeah, we've got petitions at both of the Davidson's drugs in the village and down south.
Okay, so we can go there to do that.
Right.
Sign, and if it's duplicated, we will still want
Yes.
it. If we've already done. Okay.
Yes, sir.
On the signing petition, is there some threshold signing must be registered to vote for a property?
Both. We have three categories. We have registered voter, property owner but not registered voter, and non-resident off the island. And we're collecting all three in those categories.
The neighbors to my right and left who are not here, not registered, do own property, so they still sign the petition, check the rate.
Absolutely.
I haven't been to the website, so I may be missing something. You could find on there what the problem is, why we should allow to incorporate. If so, what were the arguments for the appropriate representatives you can see against us doing?
Okay, so there were 4 arguments by the 3 representatives that did not vote for us. The first argument from Representative James Buchanan is that part of our budget was for infrastructure projects. And if we identify infrastructure projects, there is funding available for us called an infrastructure surtax. And at the meeting, he challenged us, what are your infrastructure projects that you're going to do with this money? And I'm pretty sure I answered that question, that we were going to be focused on pedestrian and bicycle safety and island beautification, specifically trying to improve some of the landscaping and brick pavers and street lighting in the village and down south, as well as we were looking at entry features that would make the the island with the #1 beach in the world look like it at the North and South Bridge. And then we were looking at doing a traffic study and finding ways to maybe widen our bike paths, because there's quite a bit more right-of-way than is currently being used for pedestrian and bicycle safety. And apparently, those answers weren't good enough for Representative Buchanan. The next objection we just heard was Senator Will Robinson saying, I got a real problem. You got the city of Sarasota with, a few homes on the north end of the island. And so, just having 2 cities doesn't feel good to me. And so that was his objection. And then he also challenged us on the budget, saying that he was concerned that our $180,000 a year salary for a town manager was too low. And I think I told y'all a couple of months ago, after the fact, I did the research and found out that the average town manager salary in the state of Florida is $86,000. And then the 4th objection from Representative Tommy Gregory was actually 2 things. Tommy is a very conservative Republican, which I respect. And he is just a no new taxes, no new government guy, and just couldn't get over that. And then he also challenged us on our petitions and said, how many petitions do you have? And I answered the question that we had 2,600. And he said, well, you got 7,000 registered voters. That's not enough. So those were the objections. We think we're addressing all of them except that city abutting a city that can be waived.
Where would you define the problem? The engineering would apply. What is the problem? There's a difficulty in most people never properly define the problem. They're off chasing solutions that don't address the problem. The answers they gave you are secondaries that do not address what I think the problem is that the commissioners are not doing what we want them to do with our items.
The county commissioners.
Yes, we have a problem because we're on water rationing and they want to allow another 500 hotel rooms to be built. It's illogical. How are we going to handle the sewage that we're so on? So the question in my mind is, what did we say the problem is as to why we should self-develop?
I see your point. You know, what our feasibility study detailed, and it was like 36 pages, is that, you know, our focus would be zoning, and the presumption is that we would keep in place the Siesta Key overlay district. Is everybody familiar with the Siesta Key overlay district and when it was put in place and why it was put in place? It was put in place, so there was an incorporation effort back in the 1990s. And Sarasota County leaders didn't want Siesta to be successful in incorporating. So they came to the leaders at that time, which included John Davidson Drugs, who is on our board today in his 90s, and said, tell you what, if you guys will stop, we'll give you a special overlay district. Restricted height and restricted density. So we get it. Siesta Key's built out. You got enough condos. You got enough buildings. And we get it. And so they put that overlay district in place, and it more or less was enforced until the last 2 or 3 years when the current county commission majority decided we don't have to abide by that. We can make up our own rules. We can do whatever we want. And so, you know, that's really why we were incorporating. It was one of the major issues.
We put forth that argument to these people because all the rest of their answers are nonsense. They don't address what the problem is that the commission is running rampant, disobeying what we have as rules.
The answer is absolutely. We met one-on-one, face-to-face with the entire local delegation and put forth those reasons and others. And, you know, the political will just wasn't there this year. We think a lot of that had to do with the leadership of the Speaker of the House and his staunch position of no new government, no new cities. And we think that was probably the biggest obstacle that was thrown our way. I happen to agree with you that the objections that were brought up by the local delegation at the local delegation meeting, in my view, were smoke screens. But that's, we'll never know for sure. And that's just my opinion.
We never asked them to address the basic problem of the density issue. How do they expect us to deal with this? Do they offer us a bone?
2 things. When I met with Representative Will Robinson, and I respect his opinion, he told me straight out. He said, you know, I think what y'all got here is a zoning dispute with the county commission. I'm just not sure that's a good enough reason to form a city. I mean, that's what he told me.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And he's correct in that. I'm sorry for interrupting. No, that's correct. We're not getting representation that we feel we deserve. And it's a zoning issue. So somebody is favoring this construction over the will of the residents.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So it's really as this gentleman was saying, it's about these commissioners, these people that are handling the zoning. Easier to get rid of them than to incorporate, probably, huh?
Is it?
I don't know. And the other thing is, how long is this process going to take if we're successful? These hotels, will they be built by the time this is done?
Maybe not. Couple of things. To go through this entire process, assuming that we're successful, we'll be an incorporated city with our own rule that is decided by those 5 elected town council members, probably early to mid 24. So, as we're sitting here in early to mid 22, we've got 2 more years of rule by the county under a best case scenario. Now, you're probably aware that 2 hotels have lawsuits filed against them. And I'm not going to sit here and predict whether that's going to be successful or not. And it also begs the question, how many other developers are going to be licking their chops and saying, well, these 2 got approved, it's set a precedence, let's go get Siesta. And how many more are going to follow before we would have our own rule? You know, I guess one concern that I have personally, and you know, the Save Siesta Key, we've chosen to focus our efforts on incorporation because we think that is the long-term solution. I'm personally very passionate about what's going on in the Sarasota County Commission races right now. The simple fact of the matter is that only 2 of the 5 seats are up for election in November. And they happen to be the 2 that are on Siesta Key in District 2 and District 4. And we could sit here for hours and debate the merits and pros and cons of each of the candidates, right, Catherine? Catherine and Bob and I have been in multiple meetings this week, actually having discussions with people. So that, you know, I'm not convinced that we can just go replace the commissioners and everything's going to be okay. Yes, sir.
Override the old rule so that you get the
Am I going to steal your thunder later?
No?
We've heard that rumor as well.
It's in the paper.
Yeah. In other words, that's not a secret. They've been almost bragging and bodacious of saying, you know what, if the lawsuit's successful, we're just going to get the commission to, you know, put in a new ordinance and get rid of the overlay district, so then we won't be in non-compliance. Isn't that essentially what they've said?
Yeah, and I guess we answer back that you have to change the comprehensive plan, which they refuse to even address. And the nice thing about changing the comprehensive plan is it takes 4 votes, not 3. Last time we got 2 votes against the hotel in the village. That would have been enough to stop the comprehensive plan. But they only changed the zoning code, which only required 3. And so it passed on that. And that's what that lawsuit's all about, is you made a mistake. And it's true they could change it, but it also takes 4 votes, a supermajority, to change the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is real clear. It says density is defined by the 1989 zoning code, which is real clear. It includes hotel rooms, and it's 13 units per acre for a residence, multifamily, or a hotel. So, I mean, these things are 4 to 6 times that. So they just ignored it so far. We'll see if the judge agrees.
I saw some other hands. Yes, sir.
Stories about number of taxable units on Siesta Key as a percentage of the taxable units from property tax in the county, and that the collective cumulative property tax paid off of the units in Siesta Key in a way exceeds the percentage of the taxable units, i.e. taxation without representation.
Yeah. The only statistic I'm aware of, and maybe Catherine and Bob know more than this, is that we are just shy of 2% of the total population of Sarasota County. I think we're like 1.9 or something. And from an ad valorem tax standpoint, we're about 8.2%. So our contribution in ad valorem taxes is 4 times our population. I don't know about taxable units. Yes.
You have to go back over that. I read quite a few articles about City of Sarasota wanting to take over too. If Siesta Key Incorporation here failed, is there any credence to that, or is it just somebody writing things in the newspaper?
There has. The city of Sarasota was interested in us becoming part of the city. We had a preliminary meeting with them. It didn't go any further than that. I think one of the main reasons is that their current millage is over 3 mills. And they said under probably best case scenario in the beginning, it would be millage and something in the 2s. And of the Siesta Key leaders that met with them, we didn't think that would fly with our residents. Plus, you got to be careful that, in the jumping from the pan to the frying pan, or being careful what you wish for. If you look at the history of development in the city of Sarasota, there's an argument, really, you want to be part of that?
That's kind of my point. I mean, that's one of the things that leads me more to support incorporation is I wouldn't want to be part of the city of Sarasota. And it seems like, from what I'm reading, they got their sights set on all the money that's out here if this incorporation fails.
It would appear that they would benefit more than us. And yes, they were licking their chops at what we would do to their annual budget. You've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, so we have this process we have the local officials get 3 and 1 and get to move to the next step.
That's right.
Go to the house,
Yes, sir. That's right. Simple majority.
And we get through all that.
We have the option of asking the supervisor of elections for a special election, or we can wait until that first Tuesday in November for a regularly scheduled election. And we really haven't given a tremendous amount of strategic thought to which would be the best. Let's hope we get to that point and have that thought process. Safe Siesta Keys focuses incorporation, and I don't think we're going to endorse candidates. We've kind of formed a loose group of leaders on Siesta Key, and I know that SKA is going to interview candidates, correct?
Well, we're doing a forum. People get to ask specific questions. Many of them have already had outreach with some of us to ask for what questions would you like them to answer. And that, based on those questions, we will have an opportunity for each of them to respond in writing, actually first, and then we can have a forum based on those responses. That makes sense.
Actually, if there's a poll done, will our donors get our wages will be possibly maybe part of the poll of the only people that
No, they'll be part of the polls. I said in our petitions, we're collecting 3 categories of registered voters, property owners, and non-residents. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
The next thing that is actually positive, and I hope it is because Natalie on our board here would like to just give you a quick update on what the heck is going on around Siesta Key regarding real estate. What is she seeing? And I wanted her to give you some updates.
Write this down for me. Hello, I'm Natalie Gutwein. I'm with Premier Sotheby's International Realty. You won't find my name anywhere. I work with Judy Berger. So everything that I do goes under Judy's name. We are predominantly Siesta Key. Judy and I both live here on Siesta Key. Most of the real estate we sell is Siesta Key. Last year was, we closed $121 million worth of business. Last year was, being 2021, it was insane. Thought maybe I'd give you some numbers to kind of look at. I mean, we all do know this, how crazy it's been. The average price of a home sold just here on Siesta Key in 2021 to today went up 13%. The average price home, and that's single family home, here on Siesta Key is $2,295,920. Condo prices went up 33.4%. Our average condo right now is $827,677. So we have seen crazy numbers. Florida's popular. We have low taxation. I personally show all of our listings, and I meet with a lot of our buyers. So I see a lot of people that are moving to our island, and I hear why they want to be here. Our taxation, the way Florida handled COVID, and that we didn't shut everything down. Our government, our governor, is a lot of reason people want to move here. I mean, let's face it, if you're going to get locked up for 2 years, you'd rather be here or Minnesota. You know, that's a big thing. Right now, we've actually seen things kind of level out a little bit. I don't know that we're going to see prices appreciate anymore, but I don't see them going down either. I kind of see them steady where they're at. May, the last 3 weeks, it slowed down just a little bit. Especially after Easter, it got a little bit slower. I'm sure we all noticed in the village. I could get to my coffee without 5,000 people being in line in front of me, but couple of big things. The biggest growth we saw in single-family homes, now this was in the Sarasota, Manatee County area. That was in $500,000 to $1 million. We saw the biggest growth. And in condos, we saw the biggest growth in over $4 million. Things have changed significantly. Everybody. A big thing is people are no longer stuck in one place. COVID changed our world in so many ways, and one of the big ways was people can work from home now. And so we're seeing a younger crowd move into Florida because they're still working, but they can work from anywhere. So that's a lot of what we're seeing also. I would say the biggest things we've seen with buyers are starting to get a little bit of fatigue. Buyers have also just they're not, at one point a year ago, anything and everything was selling. It didn't matter how bad it looked, how overpriced it was. I mean, we would put things on the market and think we were putting it at a reasonable rate, and it would go $200,000 over ask. We had a property on in Bradenton. It was listed at $6 million, around $6 million, went for $1.1 million over ask. That property had been on the market on and off for 2 years. And boom, 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 5 offers all at once. And it just ended in this crazy bidding war. We're not seeing as much of that right now. Buyers are not interested in the overpriced listings anymore. The homes that are selling quickly are the ones that are well-maintained, kept up, reasonably priced. That's what we're still seeing a bidding war on. Not the stuff that somebody's just put a crazy price on and hoping somebody grabs it. Anybody have any questions about this?
One basic question, a lot of people, or most people pay cash when working.
Well, glad you brought that up. That was in my notes and I forgot to mention it. Part of the challenge for buyers moving in have been for anybody that requires financing. So it's been kind of crazy. Cash is king for for sure. What I did see though, and I was kind of surprised sometimes how much money people will borrow. We saw a lot of financing behind the scenes. So cash offers, and you have to have cash. So if everything breaks loose, you can pay cash at closing. You have to be able to have that to write a cash contract. But interest rates were so low, there were a lot of people getting financing in the background. That I think is gonna loosen up some, but we're not the average market either. You know, I'm not sure how much interest rate that going up is going to affect us. It'll be interesting to see how that works.
Are there more foreign buyers coming in these days? Some other day?
So during COVID, it was very interesting. We didn't have any foreign buyers. You know, they were shut off. We had more foreign sellers because they couldn't get to their properties. We find, you know, we've opened up again. So we're starting to see a little bit of that, but most of this competition has been Americans. Moving on. Thank you. Yeah.
The house previously was established by the county $1 million in tax on that basis. Now it sells for $2 million. Is the tax going to follow the $2 million selling price?
It is. The county is, they should be getting a lot more revenue very shortly because it's the same formula. That formula is constant, whether the house sells at $1 million today or $2 million. So yes, our taxes, they will be reevaluated on the new sales price and they'll be paying taxes on it.
You don't have to see that under the fact that you buy a house.
Year and a half. The following year. Sometimes it might take a little bit of time to catch up, but that's about it. How long?
Where I'm going with that is going back to the previous conversation and dealing with the state and the money that they were expecting us to do one to.
That's a very good point toward the incorporation is the revenues off this island are going to increase significantly. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure from your personal experience, because you're so young to answer this, but when you meet in the industry and you realtors get together, is there any fear that what happened in 2008 could happen again, or are the factors so different that it's regarding
No, I actually thank you for the compliment, but I started in real estate in 2004 in Indiana, and then I sold in Georgia, and now I'm here, and it's not the same scenario. After 2009, there were a lot of stop gaps put in place so that bubble won't happen again. So you don't have people borrowing money that they have absolutely no business borrowing. It's a different scenario.
We've heard the church bells ringing.
Perfect timing.
Who wants to go get supper? Raise your hand. If you do, it's about that time, and I always try to always do promise to get you out of here reasonable. So
I think we did pretty well today. We missed our code enforcement officer. He has good news, but I will tell you about that another time. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a great night, and I'm so glad to see all these faces here tonight. And I know we have a lot online as well, but it's just growing every month. So happy making faces. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you next month. Thanks a lot.